So typically when I see a diagnosis, in front of me without meeting the patient, just through the medical records, and I see bipolar disorder in a child, I just really put on my curiosity hat. Like, is this truly bipolar disorder? Because it's often misdiagnosed and it's so rare. By the time a child has come to me, they've already seen a pediatrician, they've seen a counselor, they've seen a psychologist, they may have even seen a neurologist, and then they may have gone through neuropsych testing. But by the time they come to a child psychiatrist, they've been through the ringer. That's the majority of cases.
Now, we often discuss how many mental health conditions are misdiagnosed, but why is there a correlation between a bipolar misdiagnosis with a depression diagnosis or vice versa?
So this is interesting, and I see this in my practice, and I'm so glad that the data and the research reflects this. A lot of times, people who have a bipolar disorder diagnosis, they spend the majority of their lifetime in mood states that look like depression. This is the part where I like to really emphasize, because a lot of times I have people walking around with something called high functioning depression. And, their functioning is actually not impaired, but the depression is so severe and it's so excruciating. It literally feels like pain, but they're just kind of like trudging through life, So, you have this cluster of symptoms for 2 weeks or more, and it's not caused by something else. It's not caused by COVID. It's not caused by cancer. It's not caused by substances. It's truly an organic depression. So you can have a depressive episode. This is important. You can have a depressive episode and not have major depressive disorder.
Yes.
And so you can have depressed episodes within schizoaffective disorder. You can have depressed episodes, within bipolar disorder.
Yeah.
But having a depressive episode alone is not enough to diagnose you with unipolar, or what we call major depressive disorder. Because if you have had a major depressive episode, but you've also had a hypomanic episode, a truly organic one, not one caused by substances or illness, then that's more like a bipolar 2, right? You had a hypomanic episode and a major depressive episode in your lifetime that was not caused by a substance or an illness. Or if you've had a manic episode plus a major depressive episode, we're looking at bipolar 1. So, you really want to be careful about saying, I've had a depressive episode, therefore I have major depressive disorder, unipolar depression. And that's not necessarily the case. And so what happens is that you have someone who has symptoms of depression. They have low mood. They don't enjoy things, something called anhedonia.
Yep.
They feel guilty. They have no energy. They don't enjoy sex as much. All these things, low appetite, that look like depression. They have a depressive episode. Every now and then, they may have a manic episode that wasn't caught or wasn't witnessed, or wasn't reported to a provider, because the depression is just so much more common. That's why people who have bipolar disorder tend to get misdiagnosed, because only the depressive episode is seen or reported.
I've talked to some people living with bipolar disorder, and a few of them have mentioned to me that in the early days of experiencing the symptoms, they never went to a doctor or a mental health provider when they were manic. They felt great. They had energy. They might not even realize that they haven't slept in, a day or two or even longer, but they just feel good. So why go to a doctor when you're feeling fabulous? But then they come in on their depressive episodes, of course, because you don't feel good. And then if that's all the provider information the provider is getting, the depression diagnosis makes perfect sense.
Something like 1 in 5 kids will have a depressive episode in the age of like adolescence, right? Bipolar disorder is a lot less common in the general population. You have some stats that say it's as high as 2.5%. Other stats will say it's like more like 1%. It's not as common. It's not as common. And you have to remember that most people see either their pediatrician, their family medicine doctor, or their internal medicine doctor. If you go to your provider and you just happen to be in a major depressive episode, then you're going to get that stamp of major depressive disorder, when it's not the same as having a major depressive episode. This also involves the patient and the patient's family, because we're all a part of this fact-finding journey. We're all trying to be curious and inquisitive about what's happening. So we're all in it together. We're all going to be a part of this solution and this treatment plan.